Hey guys, this is Real Appalachia with Shane.
And Melody.
The little Hillbilly Strong twins today.
Yes.
We didn't have that in planned, actually, believe it or not.
No, we didn't, but we created these shirts for the resilient spirit of Appalachians and how a community pulls together. And so we've got all the states that we cover, but we are Virginia people, so we're in Virginia today, but we got Tennessee, North Carolina, Kentucky, West Virginia, and all of our profits from our Kentucky shirts are going to flood victims in Eastern Kentucky right now.
And thanks to everybody who's already bought one. Yes. Some of those have got bought before we even promoted that we had them. So
yes, thank you guys so much.
Now, onto the video. This is the second part of an interview started about a year or so ago with Dewey Hardy, and it's very timely because we just got a video from Aminata, and he's from Bandy area. So we thought we'd finish it up. I forgot to post the second part. So a year or something later, here's the finishing part of that interview. I've had a couple people mention that and point that out to me lately, so thank you guys, and we will let Dewey speak.
And give us a thumbs up,
yes,
and subscribe, and comment, and all that good stuff.
And please forgive me. Thanks. Did you ever work in a mine where somebody got killed?
Yeah.
What happened with that?
Well, I worked in the mine where two of them got killed, really. Three of them. One was on a scoop, and the operator of the scoop, it was a Kersey scoop, not an S&S. They were building a place for a belt to dump on another belt, so they shot a cavity up in the roof for distance, and for whatever reason the low top was there, and he had the scoop in reverse, and he backed up, and his head was not cleared, so they had fatality in that way. Another one was a Bishop, where they had a man trip going down an incline. And for some reason or other, the rails, or whatever reason, the man bus run away. And then one of the people that I knew was unloaded out of the man trip to save himself, but yet he was the one that got killed. The others survived. All kinds of stuff, stories like that with people that gets killed.
It just accident, or
just accident.
At any time during those years did you think about leaving and getting out of the mining business? I know a lot of people in the 50s got on what they call the Hillbilly Highway and went up north, Michigan, Ohio, and stuff like that, or do you enjoy the mining part of it?
Well, I went to Michigan, got a job at Packard, and I didn't stay very long at all. I came back home. One time I got out of the service, I went to Baltimore, got a job with an aircraft company, and I didn't stay with that, so I came back and got a job in the mines.
Do you just miss home, or?
I don't know. I don't know. It just seemed like it was overwhelming, I guess, not having a place to stay, and trying to get out on your own and getting a job, and supposed to go the next day to get a physical, and Glenn L. Martin was the company. But for some reason or other, it wasn't impressive enough for me to stay up there. Well, in a lot of cases, the people that used the alcohol would take the money and not have anything for food. I mean, they'd abuse their family. And, there's some part of the man back then thought he was the man of everything. And they would pretty much work on their families in abuse to saying, I'm the king.
Well, that's what happened a lot. I hear is too the men back then. A lot of them were pretty hard or abusive on their wives and children. Is that common? Or?
Well, I don't know. I didn't live around much of that, but you know that it was pretty much in the male thinking that, you know, I'm the boss. But you don't see that nowadays. It's just absent almost. And you know, sometimes you're seeing a whole lot of it in, you know, in the sports world and things of that nature. But you know, I guess we live in an environment where we don't see a whole lot going on, but all we know is what we read.
I guess back then men made the money, so they had the power.
I don't know what brought it back, but I guess there was a little peer pressure somewhere along the line to get them in that frame of mind.
Where did you meet your wife at?
She was at Square, and she was from Beckley. And she came down to Bluefield to live, and she was quite young at the time, and she was afraid her dad was going to come and make her go home. So she got a job with my cousins, helping them. And so I got out of the service, and I came along. And there's a whole lot of details could go into it, but it's worked out wonderfully.
How long have you been married?
62 years.
62 years.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of dating did y'all do? What did people do back then?
Well, we went to movies, had movies. I had a 49 Mercury, a blue one. And so, you know, it was good days. I had just begun to work in a coal mine, loading my 5 cars and going home, 6 cars, which I tried to average, if I could, 21 ton a day. And I had to work every day to do it. I couldn't lay off and keep an average because it was pretty grueling work.
So you got paid by the car, didn't you?
By the ton.
By the ton.
And then they had a tire weight to come off of, you know, what would be rock, and they had so much a tire weight that come off. They had a union person there and a company person there to keep things level.
Yeah, I've heard before that when it was before the union, you just had to trust the company that your whatever you hauled out was measured right and all that. So as far as the tonnage that you did.
Yeah, they had a way to measure those cars, and sometimes, you know, they was anywhere from 3 to 4 ton cars, something like that, 3.5.
My dad talked about mules when he worked in the mines. I guess that was he worked in a truck mine. That was pretty bad back then.
I seen a little bit of that. I seen some of those mules, and I'd even worked at one in my earlier days where they had a little mule to take that car back in there.
Don't see that anymore, do you?
No, we done got mechanized now. We're done in the electronic age, and we do things through controlled diodes and all that kind of stuff anymore.
What do you think will happen to McDowell County and Aminata, Bishop 50 years from now? Do you think they'll even still be here? Or?
They'll still be here, but I don't know. I don't know about the houses, but I don't know what'll happen to them. Just to be honest, we burrow in. And another thing with some of those places, drugs plays a big part in the downfall.
Yeah, I see that a lot.
You see a lot of times where there's youngsters, and some that I've known when I was, you know, younger, 45 to 60 was the max of their life. It's unfortunate, but you know, for some reason or other, it seems that the in crowd captures them. They want to be in there with them.
Hopefully I wasn't one of those people. I'm about to turn 45 here, so you just named my age bracket. So.
I put you measuring up yourself, huh?
There's a lot of pride in different. I've noticed when I'm talking to people too that some mines were respected more than others. I guess like if you worked at Aminata or Bishop, that was a bigger deal than working at some of these other places.
Like Big Auger, yeah. Well, Big Auger come along. They began to, you know, they had a lot of ways of doing things that was quite different. They had hydraulic driven shuttle cars, which, you know, I as a mechanic or as an electrician, I looked at that quite regular. They had a Jeffrey loading machine, and they were coming along, but Hawley Fuel, Jacobs Fork, it kind of fell by the wayside for whatever reason, I don't know. I worked for them 1 year in my basket of jobs.
I guess it was kind of competitive between these mines too to get the best employees, wasn't it? Is that why they had nicer housing and stuff?
No, I never caught that in them, you know. See, we lived in the little independent square, and people's notions of how they wanted their house built, and some of it was built, you know, fairly well for the times, and some of them was built with the weatherboarding and the siding, and I don't, you know, and some was built, you know, in like this place out on the hill here. It was a chosen place, but most usually they would have to go where there's spring water come out of the mountain, way back. But then, you know, it got a little bit more modern, and some of them got water systems.
Aminata's got a water system.
Yeah, they have. They've had it for a long while. Berwyn has too.
I went to Jewel Valley. Do you know where that is? I mean, I guess you know where that is.
I know where that's
at. It's a
at.
ghost town now. And,
Is that right?
I think it's because of water. Somebody told me that it got some contamination or something in their water system, and everybody moved out. It's frightening to go down there. Though. I was going to go down there today, but I don't think I'm going to make it. But it's all those houses are abandoned, falling in, and kudzu taking over. And just a sad state of affairs.
Well, that's the picture of Berwyn, Aminata, Bishop.
They're just too far away from town to have. If you don't have a mine job, you don't have a job, probably. Do you?
It probably don't unless you have some kind of a check or some kind of something like that. If you got a little, you know, like a medical job or some little job would take you out of those towns, and some of them do. Some of them work at a nursing home, or some of them work at a hospital, and they get some training, and I guess that would be the key to a lot of those places to exist.
About picked your brain enough there. Have you got anything else you'd like to say, or about mining or your career?
About mining? Oh, I'm 85. And I guess I would have to say that probably the leaving off of the tobacco smoking whenever I was a young person is probably considered to my age. I mean, that's in my estimation. And it's about that time why I gave my life to the Lord, 1953. And I ain't had everything go my way, but I've learned by my mistakes. Hopefully, it don't matter about the size of the church, but you know, the fellowship of people that you go into. You know, you encourage them; they encourage you, and you know, to see a different face. from your daily routine. It's pretty important. I can't give you a lot of facts about it, but assembling together is awfully important. You might not learn much, but then you might learn a whole lot too. But whenever I think about the Lord when He's on earth, well, you know, He made a tree wilt. He walked on the water. It's just any numbers of things. He could heal someone. And if you look at all of the things, he controlled even the animals. He controlled the sicknesses. And it amazes me to think, you know, that all of creation, that in some way or another, He pretty much spoke to. But His main point was He come for the interest of people. It's my estimation.
Would you say you've had a happy life?
I think I have. I've been able to travel. I've been to California at least 4 times. And I've traveled to Pennsylvania, traveled to Florida. And we live there part-time now, 7 months of the year. And I've been able to go to Disney in California and, you know, Disneyland. And it's Disney World down in Florida. And
Do you ever drive through and see some of these old coal camp towns? Do you go through Eminata or any of those places?
all time, most time, sometimes. I go through Eminata. I go through Bishop.
What do you think of
Jacob's Fork's not there anymore.
It's not?
No, it's Jacob's Fork, but it's sparsely with houses.
That's the way Red Ash Camp is down. It's a road sign. There's nothing else down there. That's where my papa was from. And what changes do you see? What do you think about when you go there? Because it used to be all kinds of stuff going on there.
Well, like in Berwyn, there's used to be upkeep, used to be painted houses. In some cases, you know, they would have pretty good pride about what's going on, especially Eminata, especially Bishop, and Berwyn. But the quality of life is, you know, where they used to be, that, you know, they hired out of the community and they would have their supply men, or they'd have, and they even worked on armatures. They'd work on their own motors. And like the Berwyn, they had a tremendous shop. And they had a briquette plant. And then they had, at one time, they had a place to generate electricity called the powerhouse.
What about the town? That some of these places had theaters and all kinds of stuff, didn't they?
Oh yes, just about all them little towns except Squire. Newhall had a theater. Stony Ridge Bishop had a theater. Eminata had a theater. Newhall, all of them had theaters.
The company store.
And we would walk in one occasion that they had a theater at Newhall, and they had what they call, a person whose name was Ray R. Myers. And we walked 3 or 4 miles down there and 3 or 4 miles back to see him perform. He had no arms. And as his show went on, he could do most everything that anybody, he could write, he could do a lot of things. Of course, they had the old-time movies and had cowboy movies, but we went all the way to war to see that, cowboy movies.
I guess Pocahontas, the town, had dropped off a little bit by the 50s, hadn't it? Or is it still pretty booming?
Pocahontas, yeah, they had Pocahontas, Bosavane. They had some activity around there, like the central shop and some offices. Consul had offices there for way up until they built the office building up in Bluefield, Virginia. And it stayed going pretty good for a long time, but you know, I don't know much about it right now, but there's a lot of the old places that's been torn down. There's not any indication that there's any life for the coal industry in Pocahontas, as well as Aminata and as well as Berwyn and also Newhall.
What do you think will happen to these camps? Like Aminata, they used to have hundreds of houses back there, didn't they? And now it's a handful.
Well, there's every fourth house almost seems like it's deserted or deteriorated. And I don't know. I as a very young boy, I can remember going to Aminata when they had the payday lines. They had them at Bishop. They lined up at Big Auger to do the same thing in Aminata. And there's one particular story that I can remember is on a Saturday, and they had the thing that fascinated me was that they had a guy who was selling snake oil. And he had a wire with a little square piece of pasteboard, and he had a rattlesnake in the box, and he punched at that rattlesnake. And he said, "Get your snake bite oil." And you know, some of those miners would buy that. I mean, you know, I don't know, but anyhow, that was one picture that kind of was in my mind. I could go over it pretty clearly because I was just a little boy and I was curious. But I do remember those lines where they lined up to get pay.
Yeah, I think memories like that will stay with you. You know, something that jumps out. Anything
Yeah.
else like that you can remember that just left an impression on you?
Well, I don't know if it, I don't know. I was not too much impressionable at the time. I wanted to play marbles and do a lot of things, go to the mountains and you know, just things like that.
So you'll entertain yourself outside mostly?
Yeah, mostly we'd gang up and go up in the hollow and do things, play. In one case, we had some old cliffs, you know, that you could kind of climb back in. One mine was the opening was left open. We'd kind of go down in it, but it had good sandstone top. And we couldn't go too far. We didn't have lights, but we could get in it. But I don't know why we'd go back up in there. Sometimes, you know, it'd be for hunting, or just getting out and going up in there to look for stuff. Sometimes they'd be, you know, the old places, they'd have apples sometimes, and, you know, it's just different things. There's always a little something of interest would take you back in there.
What about, I know when people think about the word Appalachia, they think of, you know, poor white hillbilly.
Poor people.
Yeah, but there was a lot of, I went to Pocahontas Cemetery, and there's, I mean, all kinds of nationalities and races and everything else. Was that like that when you were working, or even as a kid? Do you remember a lot of different races and Italians and all this
Yeah,
stuff?
we had some Italians, and blacks, and all kinds of people. You get in there, that the loading that 4 or 5 cars of coal brings you down to a common. You don't recognize him as being just another guy over there, in my notion.
Would you say coal's been a good thing or a bad thing for this area?
Coal has been good for a few people. Usually whenever they have mines, why, you know, they choose the best they can get, and sometimes they'll be college kids from Princeton. And it don't do a whole lot for the individual area, but it does a lot for some people. It's not like the pick and shovel days anymore, you know. It's pretty gets pretty intense when it gets into the electrical and the belt drives and knowing all the DC and all the ways of travel in and out. It gets pretty extensive when you get into that.
If you had it to do over again, would you stay with mining? Would you have a good?
I love it. I'd do it in a heartbeat.